Well, we just watched a Thursday night barn burner. Not exactly. Let's say the tides have flipped. The Bills, I would say, destroy the Patriots. Let's talk some football. You know what's funny is for 2 decades, Belichick had this guy from Sarah High School named Thomas Brady and beat the living piss out of the AFC East. He kicked everyone's ass. I mean, hell, he hasn't even lost to the Jets in like 8 years, and that includes Cam Newton and Mac Jones. But the tides have flipped. And I think tonight, last time I checked, well, I guess they knelt the ball. So the stats, if you didn't watch the game and you just clicked on the box score, you'd go, God, Mac Jones and Josh Allen's numbers look relatively similar. Both completed 22 balls, no interceptions. Josh threw a couple touchdowns. Mac only threw one. But you'd go, they didn't throw, yards per attempt, not that crazy. But when you watch the game, the gap was as wide as the Grand Canyon. And obviously Belichick and even Tom benefited from the AFC East, for the most part, was pretty bad over those 20 years. Now it's really good, right? I mean, there's a decent chance. I'd say there's a very good chance they get 3 teams in the playoffs. So anytime you do that, especially if, honestly, one of the teams, they're going to be the 5th and the 6th seed. So it's not like the 7th seed that we've just added a couple, I guess, last year. That's impressive. But the Bills now have Josh Allen. Like tonight, that's their trump card. Now, obviously, they're more talented than the Patriots, but not that much more talented than the Patriots. It's the quarterback. And the difference between Josh Allen and Mac Jones from just the eye test is like watching a star quarterback and watching a guy that's as average as the day is long. Josh is fantastic. As someone that just loves football, and I say it all the time, I watch pro sports for the stars. I don't watch it for the overachievers, for the undrafted free agents, for the dude that was in the minor leagues for 10 years and finally makes it to the big leagues. I don't give a shit about any of those guys. I watch for Steph Curry, Josh Allen, Michael Jordan, and Tiger Woods. That's what draws me. Belichick and Tom Brady, and now Josh Allen. I mean, that guy is so fun to watch. Even the one pass that got called back on a touchdown to Diggs, his ability to just make jaw-dropping plays is pretty freaking awesome. And if you just like sports, even if you don't like the Bills, he is an easy watch. He is a fun watch. He is a spectacular talent. I mean, it is stupid how gifted this individual is and how far the guy has come in a pretty short period of time. Remember the knock on him out of Wyoming. And trust me, I was as anti-Josh Allen as anyone. This guy can't hit water if he was sitting in the boat in the middle of the ocean. And he couldn't. Balls were all over the place. And I'll never forget, I had a buddy who I'd bet my everything I own, he's going to be a GM in the league. He's an assistant, basically GM on one of the best teams in the league. And he told me, man, I think you're a little hard on Josh. I like him a lot. He believed in him. And part of the reason was, and his team's full of this now, high character, wants it bad, will give anything to be great. Now, I was like, yeah, but what if he can't complete passes? And clearly, when you have the character, the drive, and all the intangible stuff, you have a shot. Now, he's maximized it to the nth degree. But what we're witnessing right now, the other thing that hit me is like, what's fun about a quarterback and when he gets the right wide receiver? When, if you're in a relationship or you got a buddy in a relationship and it's like, God, these guys are in love. They are just meant for each other. It's just perfect. I think it's kind of like that with like a quarterback and a wide receiver. When it just pops, it just works. You're like Tyreek Hill and Mahomes. That was like made in football heaven. And honestly, he's transitioned. He's at Travis Kelce, same thing. But like you watch Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, you're like, this is perfect. Their skill sets. One, Josh can be, I guess, a little inaccurate sometimes on the short stuff. Diggs catches everything. And then his ability to make plays down the field, a little like Tyreek and Mahomes, just let it rip. He'll go up there and make a play. And Diggs, who I wouldn't say I was on the fence on because I always thought he was a fantastic player in Minnesota, but I never understood why he was always so mad. I'm like, bro, you guys are winning in Minnesota. Your team's good. Like, why don't you want to be there? And listen, maybe he just wanted out of Kirk Cousins' business. And I've always said it's one of the great draft pick for player trades in the history of the league. 22 straight up for Diggs. They get Justin Jefferson. I mean, it's got to be one of the greatest win-win trades in the history of sports. And you watch Josh Allen and you watch Stephon Diggs, it's like if they were a couple, you'd be like, they are happily married. That just works. That couple was meant to be together. And when I watch Diggs and Josh Allen play, you just go, damn, man, that just works. That is a fun watch. And on the flip side, it's like, who is stunned? Listen, I think Belichick's the best coach of all time. You can say, well, he had Thomas Brady. I don't give a shit. I watched Belichick my entire, basically from 18 years old on, beat the living piss out of everybody. Coach circles around everybody. Do things that no one else was doing. Obviously, he benefited from Tom. Phil Jackson doesn't win shit if he doesn't have Kobe or Michael Jordan. Great coaches need great players. Bill Walsh had Joe Montana. Like, you can't do it on your own. So I'm not going to just diminish Bill Belichick, what he accomplished. But today, like, I'm sorry, and I questioned it from the offseason. You name Matt Patricia your offensive coordinator, a lifetime defensive coach. You name Joe Judge, a special teams coach, your quarterback coach, to go along with Mac Jones, a physically limited guy. It never made any sense to me. It was destined to fail. Now, I thought they were going to be like a 4-win team. I underestimated Bill. They'll end up like 8-9, 9-8. But it's an ugly 8-9, 9-8, just because they have to win low-scoring games and they have to run the ball for like 100-plus yards to even have a chance. And when I watched tonight, and I went, well, number one, Mac Jones, one of his biggest downfalls, he doesn't know who he is. Like, Mac, you're closer to like Matt Schaub than you are Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Why are you running around constantly trying to make these extraordinary plays like you're like some Mahomes Lamar Jackson mix? That ain't your game, bro. And if you do that, you will fail. And you saw tonight he threw a pick. Ultimately, it wasn't because whatever these stupid catch rules are. But it's like, why are you trying to pull these plays out of your ass? You know what Belichick had a front row seat for 20 years? A quarterback that could not move and who's universally regarded as the best quarterback of all time. He couldn't move at all. I mean, he ran like a 5.2 40 at the 40 at the combine. Tom Brady knew his limitations. Most of the great pocket quarterbacks do. Now, Mac is a better athlete than Tom Brady, but he's not a good enough athlete, and he definitely doesn't have a good enough arm to just try to make these miraculous plays. He reminds me of like Russell Wilson or like Deshaun Watson, pre-massage therapist, trying to like scramble to the left, scramble to the right, and make these throws. Like, bro, what are you doing? And then I think, well, he didn't really do that last year. Why? Say what you want about this guy, and trust me, I've said some things, but Josh McDaniels is a really good offensive coordinator. Now he's got Matt Patricia and Joe Judge coaching him, and it ain't working. Now, you can argue their talent on offense isn't great. I agree. But they definitely ain't scheming. I mean, they pulled up one play out of their butt tonight with the corner/returner, Jones, number 25, who had the game-winning punt return. Sweet little play. But if they're not running some gimmicky play, they can't score if they're not running the ball down your throat. And if the wind isn't going 90 miles an hour like it was last year in Buffalo, they're not going to do that to the Bills. And Matt Patricia and Joe Judge certainly aren't going to outthink and outcoach most defensive staffs in the league. Why? Because one's a defensive coordinator at trade, and the other guy's a special teams coach. So it's just an absolute debacle on offense. And ultimately, everything falls under the Belichick umbrella when it comes to the New England Patriots. Because when it comes to the football team, he does everything. He chose these guys. They're his guys. He also drafted Mac Jones, which I have no problem. Mac Jones in like the third round. Mac Jones at pick 15. I mean, that's just absurd. And I'm not saying that hindsight now. I said it from the jump. I thought beside like the previous last 5 years, there's not a year in history that Mac Jones is a first round pick. But quarterback inflation, it is what it is. And the Patriots offense is an absolute debacle. And I'm going to end on this. Patrick Peterson said some stuff on his podcast that he does with, I think, his former teammate, McFadden, who played for the Steelers, played for the Cardinals, about Kyler Murray. And basically just said Kyler Murray just cares about Kyler Murray. And then Kyler Murray gets on Twitter, chimes back, basically like, I thought you were my mentor, a big bro. Why can't you just hit me up? And it's pretty simple. When I don't like or respect you, I'm not going to give you the time to hit you up. Part of being a good teammate in the NFL, especially a veteran guy, high character guy like Patrick Peterson. When Kyler got there, Patrick Peterson been there almost a decade, all pro guy, but really like team captain level guy, like the Larry Fitzgerald of their defense. You treat people well, whether you like or dislike them. There's a role you play on the team, especially when it comes to the number 1 overall pick. So you're not going to treat that guy bad, but you can also judge the guy. And I had heard stories from other players on the team who now are no longer on the team, who are considered some of the highest character in league history, that thought the same thing about the guy. These people are not making this up. So when Kyler is unsure why Patrick Peterson would just say this without telling him, because he doesn't like you. He never did. But part of being a teammate is sometimes you got to fake it. When you're not a teammate, and this is the cool part about some of these players having a podcast, is their willingness. And honestly, it's not even that controversial. Like one of the things those guys said is after the game, he didn't just drive the bus over Cliff Kingsbury. He threw the bus on him, lit it on fire, threw some dynamite in there, and blew the fucking thing up all over the guy. It's like, Kyler, your character has been on full display, not just for your teammates like Patrick Peterson, but for us sitting on your couch or us sitting on the couch watching you play. So this notion that is coming out is not that surprising. People do not like him. And there's, I think 2 quarterbacks that are pretty polarizing right now, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. I think Russell's obviously pretty fake, not my cup of tea. Most people don't think he's a bad human being. And I'm not saying Kyler's like a bad human being, like he's committing crimes or anything. People just don't like the guy. I mean, it's pretty well documented right now. The team doesn't like him. I've heard from countless people in the league that know people in Arizona. They're not huge fans. And no one has anyone to blame outside of that building but themselves. They paid him. They did not have to do that. I understood why they took the guy number 1. He's a fantastic talent. He's one of the fastest guys in the league. He's got a big arm. He was elite in college. It ain't working in the pros, And I said this a while back. Lincoln Riley had 3 guys back to back to back, basically. I think there was a year in between one of them. But Baker, Kyler, and then Jalen. And the biggest difference between Jalen and the other 2 guys clearly is Jalen's all in on football. He's all in on being a good teammate. He gets along with the 35-year-olds with kids. He gets along with the rookies. One thing I heard immediately in Philadelphia that drove a wedge between him and Carson Wentz, guys gravitated toward him. Guys don't naturally just gravitate toward random people. They gravitate toward people they like, who inspire them, whether it's in sports or whether it's in business. For whatever reason, Kyler Murray, you go the other way. You're like, yeah, I'm going to go eat over at this table. Clearly, Baker is somewhere in the middle. He's not as talented as those 2 guys. But I would put both Baker and Kyler in the category of something's off, bro. We got enough evidence. And Jalen is a great example of the opposite. So when Patrick Peterson, one of the more well-respected guys in the league, someone who doesn't just say shit to say shit. Honestly, from afar, I never thought Patrick Peterson was some big talker. Thought great player from LSU, went to the Cardinals, had a fantastic career. He's just speaking the truth. He's got nothing to hide. And thanks to these player podcasts, we get those type takes.